really cute coffee shop, like in this mountain town. It's like the most adorable thing ever. Um, and today I wanted to talk to you about the fatal mistake that you're making on Pinterest. Now, I did a video like this a couple years ago, and I went through and I was watching it, and I was like, oh, this has changed. This has changed a lot. Um, in the 5 years that I've been teaching my program, Smart Pin Pro, all about how to get organic Pinterest traffic, things have changed a ton. So, to introduce myself, I'm Jennifer Priest, the founder here at Smart Creative Social and the creator of Smart Pin Pro, a program that helps you get or it helps you build an organic traffic machine with Pinterest. Now, Pinterest doesn't exist in a vacuum, and one of the things that I've just been really thinking a lot about, like what results people have gotten in my program, what businesses need right now, especially this year. Things are changing a lot, and I wanted to do a little bit of teaching today. I don't always teach on these videos that much, but I'm going to give you some really juicy stuff today. Um, this is stuff we've been talking about inside the membership, and it's things that I've just been watching as I'm in Facebook groups, as I'm doing Pinterest account audits, as we're onboarding new people into the program. Like, what are the challenges that people are facing right now? So, I hope you guys can hear me really well because I'm on this little headset thing. I'm trying not to be too loud in the coffee shop. um, okay, so with the teaching, right? One of the things that happens on Pinterest is that we get really laser focused on one thing and we kind of miss the point of it all. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that people get laser focused on when it comes to Pinterest right now. So one is followers, right? Followers is somewhat of a vanity metric. It can be useful. It's useful in knowing how many people opted in to say, hey, I'm really interested in more of what you have to offer, right? Because they're like, they see your pins and they decide to click that follow button. They see an idea pin, they decide to click that follow button because they want to continue to engage with you. They want to continue to see more content. So followers matters, but probably not in the way that we're thinking. And a lot of social media managers, and you guys, I did this when I was social media manager too, focus on these kind of metrics, right? They focus on, oh, I'm going to make this beautiful report and you're going to have these metrics. I'm going to talk about your followers. I'm going to talk about your impressions. But we really need to be measuring some other stuff. So that brings me to impressions, right? Impressions, very much a vanity metric. It does tell us how many people saw our content, right? So that just means that the content surfaced on the page. It doesn't mean that they actually engaged with it in any kind of like meaningful way. The next thing that I see people focus on is page views. And this is especially true for bloggers. Page views are known as outbound clicks in your Pinterest analytics. So in Pinterest analytics, there's clicks, which just means they opened a pin. And then there's outbound clicks, which means they clicked over to your site. And you might have noticed if you're comparing these numbers from Pinterest analytics to Google analytics that they don't match. They're measured a little bit differently. Um, and this is important for traffic, right? We want to know how much traffic we're getting to from the platform of Pinterest to our site, right? Um, but there's something more we need to be doing with that, especially because Pinterest traffic is down. Okay, things have changed. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more about what that means. Is there still a possibility on Pinterest? Absolutely. And not just because I have a program, but because I am seeing it, I'm doing it. Okay, and then another thing that, and I'll get into that a little bit more in this broadcast. The other thing that I see people measuring is individual pin metrics. This is like Chinese water torture. This is like watching grass grow. You're going to drive yourself crazy trying to guess if and when Pinterest has indexed the pin or served your newest pin. So we don't want to be looking at individual pin metrics on especially new pins because it's just going to make you go crazy. We want to be looking elsewhere in analytics. So my point here is these things are things that typically we've measured, things that you would see on most KPI reports, key performance indicator reports, things that if you have a VA managing your Pinterest, they would be reporting on these things. But these don't really matter. The real point is, are we reaching our goals, right? Are we reaching our goals with Pinterest? So once we ask that, right, are we reaching our goals? We also have to then figure out how are we going to measure that? How are we going to measure the progress towards the goal? So this requires two things. The first one is knowing the goal. And the second one is knowing the metrics that show progress towards those goals. And if we look at the metrics I just talked about, right, like followers, like does that equal sales? So we got to be really specific. And there are metrics we can measure on the way there that are going to help us be more specific. So I'm going to talk about those. And so why is this important right now? This is important because the Pinterest game has changed. We could see improvements and progress towards goals like in the past. We could see improvement and progress towards goals simply for the sheer volume of traffic that Pinterest was sending to our site. You used to be able to put up a pin. You would get a ton of traffic to it, right? It would get served to a lot of people. You could put on a group board, you would get served to a ton of people. Somebody else would pin it, some big blogger, some other site that has good followers would pin it, and you would get a lot of volume. And so we could kind of get by because we just had a serious volume of traffic coming to our site. And it would equal ad revenue, it would equal affiliate income, it would equal sales if you had products, right? So we could kind of get by. We didn't have to have a really good system for following up with people. We didn't have to have a good connection system. It was simply a volume game on Pinterest. These days, Pinterest doesn't have the same virality factor it used to. Now, there are idea pins that go viral. There are things like that that are happening, but idea pins, as of this broadcast, don't have links in them yet. It's supposed to be coming. I heard it's coming, but until it's rolled out to everybody, like we can't build our hopes on that. And this is something that's natural that happens on every single platform once it monetizes, right? We lose the big like blowing up of traffic and things become a little different. But here's the thing. You can still win on Pinterest, just not the same way that we used to. And it's possible, right? Because I'm doing it right now. You can't win by banking on sheer volume of traffic. That's not how it's going to happen. We have to play much smarter to win this organic traffic game. And it's totally possible because I've been doing it and our members have been doing it. So we're still seeing results. It's just coming about in a little bit of different way. Building this machine, this organic traffic machine, is what allowed me to take a full 90 days off my business, has allowed me to travel, has allowed me to move states, has allowed me to buy a homestead in Arizona and have a new adventure. So it works. And I couldn't have done it without Pinterest and changing my focus away from just volume of traffic. And I want you to hear that again. I had to change my focus away from just volume of traffic. Okay, because the days of putting a pin up and getting hundreds of thousands of page views on that one post, that's just not happening anymore. We have to accept that. A lot of times I see people lamenting that, and I grieved it too, right? But we found another way. And so I'm going to talk to you about that. What I did instead is I focused on connecting with the traffic that comes to my site from Pinterest. Okay. How can I serve them better, right? That might be in the content. How do I serve them better in the content? How do I serve them better maybe with a lead magnet or something like that that helps them take the next natural step to solve the problem that they came to me for? How can I get them to know that I am the one they need to connect with to solve this problem they have, right? They're on Pinterest. They're looking at a whole page of results. They click on my pin, they come over, right? Or they click on your pin, they come over. How do you get them to know that you are the one they need to connect with, right? We've got to get better at that. We've got to get better at that. And then how can I continue the conversation with them beyond one page view alone? So if they're coming to a landing page, if they're coming to a blog post, if they're coming to a product, how do you continue to engage with them past that one page view? We've got to have a way to continue the conversation. I'm going to talk about some of those ways, some of what that looks like. So in the past, one page view was enough. Now we need a longer relationship with the pinner. So we can turn that one page view into tens, if not hundreds of page views over the lifetime of the relationship. And I shared this the other day in a live that I have people who've been on my list for like 10 years on my email list. It's because I created connection with them early on. And so the goal is to connect with the pinner. Okay, always connect with the pinner. This is no matter if you're a blogger or a shop, or if you're in e-commerce. Bloggers, when they connect with pinners, are going to get more page views and more affiliate sales from this approach. E-commerce people are going to get more sales and more page views from this approach. So it doesn't matter what kind of business you have. What matters is taking that page view from Pinterest and creating connection with it so that you can continue having a relationship beyond that. So how you continue that relationship is going to be different depending on if you're e-commerce or if you're a blogger, because you're going to send them different stuff. Okay? But the idea is to create and continue a relationship. No more single page views. So how do we measure this? The first thing we want to look at is conversions. Of all the and hope you guys can hear that. First thing we want to look at is conversions. Of all the people coming to the site, how many are signing up for your email list? Right? If you're a blogger, you're going to get them on your list. If you're selling products, how many people are making purchases? Do you have a way for them to continue talking to you? Do you have a pixel or something like that where you can retarget them with ads on another platform? Or even on Pinterest. You can do retargeting on Pinterest as well. We also look at bounce rate, right? How do we get them to look at more pages on our site instead of just one? If you've got a post that's getting traffic from Pinterest and the bounce rate is really high, are there more posts you can write about that topic? Are there other posts you already have that you can link to about that topic to further answer their questions and to further engage that user? So those are just two things we want to look at, and those aren't on Pinterest analytics. So why doesn't everybody do this? Well, it's not as easy or as sexy as just looking at your Pinterest or Google Analytics, right? You look at your analytics, you're like, oh, I got all these page views. That's super great. This is a little bit harder to measure. You might have to actually manually track the key performance indicators, and this can take time and it can take spreadsheets. Luckily, inside of SmartPin Pro, we have spreadsheets that help you do this because this is a challenge, and this is something that we need to look at. You might be scared of the numbers, and I will be the first to admit to you guys, I spent a lot of time in my business, and I can relate to this because I spent a lot of time scared of the numbers. I buried my head in the sand because it was just too unbearable. But to know what was actually happening. But the longer we don't take action and hide, the longer we'll stay stuck. And we can't walk in the dark and expect to get anywhere, right? We have to have numbers. We have to have numbers to make decisions. And connecting to the pinner is about taking action off of Pinterest. This is not intuitive. It's all about what you do on your site and how you follow up. So there's what we do on Pinterest, right? And I absolutely teach that in SmartPin Pro, right? And I mean, the basics of it, putting a pin on Pinterest, that kind of thing. There are nuances to it. There are ways to optimize that. But it's just as much about the action you're taking off of Pinterest on your site as it is about the actions you're taking on Pinterest. There's two parts of it. You can use Pinterest to send a ton of traffic to your site, but if you're not connecting with them afterward, it's for nothing. And maybe you don't know what emails to send them. Maybe you don't know how to follow up or how to keep the conversation going. I can relate to this too, as I have a lifestyle blog. So my topics are all over the place. If they come to me for a chore chart, which I have one post on, what am I going to talk to them about, right? So the good news is this is all figure outable, okay? It's all figure outable. It's all stuff that's solvable. It's all things that we talk about inside my program, SmartPin Pro. We have weekly coaching calls where we talk about all of this stuff because your Pinterest strategy, your traffic strategy doesn't exist in a vacuum. Pinterest is one way to get traffic, but it's not the only thing that you're going to be doing, right? I would be remiss to say that. I would be remiss if I do more than one thing in my business too to get traffic. So what happens when you start creating that? Hold on. I touched something on the screen. What happens when you start creating that connection beyond the single page views and start measuring those results instead, right? I want you to see kind of what can happen in your business, and this has happened in my business too. You get to reach people using the only social media platform, which is Pinterest, that's built on search. And it's the only social media platform that still sends more referral traffic off-site than the other social media platforms combined. In fact, Pinterest is 80 to 90% of my social traffic on any given day. It's built to send people off-site. So, you can't beat that. You get one link on Instagram, right? Facebook is always diminishing reach of links when people got all these tricks, like putting links in the comments and stuff like that. Pinterest, hands down, will send more traffic than the other social platforms if you're looking for traffic. So you get to have a presence on there. In fact, you might even be able to work less on the other platforms that aren't really built for referral traffic, or you work in a different way, right? that's more organic to those platforms. You get to blog less, right? In the last 3 years, I've blogged so much less, and I've had record-breaking months, record-breaking years for ad revenue, and affiliate revenue as well. You get to stop worrying about pinning a ton and stop worrying about individual pin metrics, right? That doesn't matter. What we want to do is look at the cream of the crop. We want to look at the top. We want to look at what's sending actual traffic. You get to create a process that you can now automate so you can do things. So you have a process that you can now automate so that I don't know what's going on. My notes are like a little out of order. But anyways, once you do this, you can figure out the process, then you can automate it. So I have systems running on automation that have allowed me to get more ROI from the page views that I'm getting from Pinterest with less effort. It's allowed me to take 90 days off in my business. It's allowed me to go on a 31-day road trip across the country with my son because I was able to create this process and automate it. You can do that off Pinterest, right? You can't automate on Pinterest anymore. Like you can use Tailwind, and I use Tailwind, but you still have to put the pins on there, right? You can't just have it like running forever on automation. But the parts that are on your site, you can automate those. Once you figure out what works, you can automate that, and that's going to save you a ton of time. So let's talk about what's the next step if you want to learn this. Join my free masterclass. In it, I'm going to teach you the mistakes that you might be making with your Pinterest account, but I'm also going to share the SMART method framework. And this is a framework I developed to help you create a smart Pinterest traffic strategy organically, no matter how much the algorithm or your business changes. There are people who've been in my program for the full 5 years and they are still using the SMART method framework. It works. And this is what I did for 10 years as a social media manager. I took that process and boiled it down to this framework, and you get it in the free masterclass. Like it's not, I use it in the program, but you get it in the free masterclass. It's the same framework I teach in SmartPin Pro. And then at the end of the masterclass, you'll learn about my program, SmartPin Pro, and you'll get an invitation to join it. So click the link in the video description, and I will see you over in the free masterclass. Now, if you have any questions about this video or what I've shared, put them down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Even if you're posting this months later, I will see it. I'll get a notification, and I'm happy to chat with you about this. I appreciate you guys watching. This is a 17-minute long video. It's a little bit longer than I usually do. So I appreciate you guys who are here, and I would love to know what you're doing to continue the conversation on your site. Let me know in the comments.